about the revolt of 1857. The revolt began on May 10, 1857 at Mid-Atasa Immunity. It was initiated by supporters in the Bengal presidency against the British officers. It spread to Delhi, Agra, Kanpur and Lucknow. The revolt of 1857 was a prolonged period of armed uprising as well as rebellions in northern and central India against the British occupation of that part of the subcontinent. A large scale of rebellions broke out in May and turned into what may be called a full-fledged war. This War of Independence marked the end of the rule by the British East India Company. Thank you.
Causes of the revolt. Political causes. Lord Dalhousie's policy of annexation and the doctrine of lapse had made the Indian rulers angry and insecure. The Rani of Jhansi, Lakshmibai, was not allowed to adopt a son. Economic causes. The British had drained India of all her wealth and natural resources by selfish economic policies. Farmers were forced to grow cash crops. There was severe food shortage and famine. The handloom industry had been destroyed. Weavers lost their jobs. Social causes. The practice of sati was abolished. Widow remarriage was encouraged. Child marriage was not allowed. Interference of British in Indian social customs. Common people did not appreciate the changes in social customs. Westernization brought about by the British. Religious causes. Hindus and Muslims were forced to convert to Christianity. Military causes. Immense discrimination between the British and the Indians. The Indian sepoys were deprived of high salaries and promotions. The highest post for an Indian was that of the Subedar.
Finishing of the Revolt of 1857. Finishing of the revolt. The revolt was considered to be an awakener and the first effort towards freedom and independence. The British considered it to be a mere military revolt. The control of Indian administration was transferred from the company to the crown by the GOI at 1857. The Queen promised to respect rights and dignity, general amnesty to all offenders except murders. The Indian army was reorganized, including Sikhs, Gurkhas and Pathans. The Mughal dynasty ended with the extension of Bahadur Shah II and was replaced by British Crown. Freedom of religion granted. As per Queen's proclamation, more Indians joined the administration. Racial animosity increased. The British introduced the policy of divide and rule that led to the partition of India in 1947. The British exploited the economy further.
On November 1st, 1858, a grand darbar was held at Allahabad. Here Lord Canning sent forth the royal proclamation which announced the Queen had assumed the government of India. This proclamation declared the future policy of the British rule in India. Let us find out why this happened. Scene 1. In the Queen's room. It is late at night. The Queen is bent on a piece of paper. The Queen is writing with a feather quill.
Go and fetch Lord Canning. It is urgent.
As you wish, Your Highness. Scene 2. In the Queen's quarter.
Long live Your Majesty.
Come in, Lord Canning.
Your Majesty, it would be helpful to know why have you possibly called me at this time of the night.
I have to deliver this proclamation to the Prince of India. I have decided to give you the honor of reading it out to them.
It shall be my pleasure, Your Majesty. I must travel there by ship, I assume. May I take your leave now?
Yes, you may.
Scene 3. In the Delhi Darbar.
The British shall give up their policies that so entitle them to annex Indian land. We shall no longer impose in our convictions on any of our subjects. Indian leadership shall henceforth be transferred from the East India Company to the British Crown.
The British Indian Army was the principal military of the British Indian Empire before its decommissioning in 1947. It was responsible for the defense of both the British Indian Empire and the princely states, which could have also have their own armies. The Indian Army was an important part of the British Empire's forces, both in India and abroad, particularly during the First World War and the Second World War. The term Indian Army appears to have been the first used informally as a collective description to the presidency armies, the Bengal Army, the Madras Army, and the Bombay Army. The proportion of Westerners to India in the army was increased and fixed at 1 to 2 in the Bengal Army and 2 to 5 in the Madras and Bombay Infantry. The European troops were kept in key geographical and military positions. Let's have an insight of army reorganization using pictures.
I'm going to tell on Bengal Regiment. Bengal Regiment is a regiment of Bengali soldiers raised during the First World War S.D. Taylor as a regiment commander. At that time, many soldiers, skilled and unskilled laborers, were also recruited from Bengal. At first, it was called Bengali Double Company. This double companies each consist of 228 soldiers. It raised the 1st Bengali Battalion on 26 June 1970. It was named as the 49th Bengali Regiment. It was not like an ordinary army unit. Basically, young men from educated families also joined the Bengali Battalion. The Bengal Regiment existed on 31 August 1920. Now there is a memorial to those who died in Kolkata.
Punjab Frontier Regiment. The Punjab Regiment is one of the oldest regiments still in service in the Indian Army, and it's the most senior regional infantry regiment. It was formed from the 2nd Punjab Regiment of the British Indian Army in 1947 and has taken part in various battles and wars since, winning numerous honors for the same. Prior to independence and partition, there were a number of Punjab regiments in the British Army. These were amalgamated to form 6 regiments: the 1st Punjab Regiment, the 2nd Punjab Regiment, the 8th Punjab Regiment, the 14th Punjab Regiment, the 15th Punjab Regiment, and the 16th Punjab Regiment. At the onset of independence in 1947, the 1st, 8th, 14th, 15th, and 16th Punjab Regiment went over to the newly raised Pakistan Army, while the 2nd Punjab Regiment were retained in the Indian Army. Troops were transferred between regiments based on the whether the soldiers would be a part of Pakistan or India.
Madras Regiment is one of the oldest regiments in India, originated in 1750. Thank you.
Talk about the Carnatic battalions. The 75th Carnatic Infantry were an infantry regiment of the British Indian Army. Their first action was during the Carnatic Wars. The Carnatic Wars were a series of military conflicts in the middle of the 18th century in India. It is a military struggle between French East India Company and British East India Company. After World War I, the Indian government reformed the army, moving from single battalion regiment to multi-battalion regiments. In 1922, the 75th Carnatic Infantry became the 2nd Battalion, 3rd Madras Regiment. After independence, this new regiment was allocated to Indian Army. The President of India is the Supreme Commander of Indian Army.
Reorganization of Army Post. Hyderabad Regiment. Key points. The Hyderabad Regiment was active from 1922 to 1948. Country British India, Hyderabad. Branch British Indian Army. The regiment was engaged in the World War II. Nizam's Hyderabad contingent was an army funded by the Nizam of Hyderabad, the ruler of the princely state of India. The 19th Hyderabad Regiment was an infantry regiment of the British Indian Army. It was formed at the time of reforms of the Indian Army after the First World War, when it moved from single battalion regiments to multi-battalion regiments. The regiment saw service during the Second World War, and after Operation Polo was incorporated into the Indian Army as the Kumaon Regiment. By 1853, at the time of signing a treaty between the Nizam and the British, the Nizam's forces consisted of 8 battalions. The force was renamed as the Hyderabad contingent, served closely alongside the Madras Army of East India Company.
I am going to talk about the Bombay contingent. The Bombay Army was the army of the Bombay Presidency, one of the 3 presidencies of British India. It was established in 1662 and governed by the East India Company until the Government Act 1858 transferred all presidency to the direct authority of the British Crown. On April 1st, 1895, the army was incorporated into the newly created Indian Army and became known as the Bombay Command until 1908.
Delhi regiments. The 42nd Delhi Regiment was an infantry regiment of the British Indian Army. The regiment traced their origins to 1857 when the Meena Battalion was raised during the Indian Mutiny. The battalion was the nucleus for the infantry of Delhi Irrigation Force, which in May 1861 numbered 8 companies. From its founder, the regiment was required mainly from various Meena subsects. In the Indian Army list of January 1919, required base was described broadly as 4 companies of Rajputana, Hindus and Mussalmans. The regiment later served in Second Afghan War and World War I in the 5th Muha Division. The 42nd Dual Regiment was one of the regiments surplus to the new structure, and it was disbanded on 10 December 1921.
Eranpura is a village in the Rajasthan state of India. It is located in the Shehoganj Tehsil of the Sirhohi district. Eranpura is also a center for weather reports. It is having 2 military units, one Jodhpur Legion and 43rd Eranpura regiments. The Jodhpur Legion started revolt against British in 1857. It is called the Indian Mutiny. It is also called as First War of Independence. Eranpura regiments served in World War I in 15th Indian Division. It was also present at Second Battle of Ramada in 1917.
I am here to talk about Merwara Battalion of Rajputana. Merwara Battalion, also known as the Veerwara, Agra Volunteer Rifle Corps, with the title of Rajputana, Malwa Volunteer Rifle Corps, and with the establishment of British authority in the Ajmer district in 1818, it was found that the incursions of the Mayas, a predatory tribe inhabiting the neighbouring hills, constituted a serious part of the peace and development of the district. In 1822, government assumed the administration of the whole Merwara district. In the same year, it was resolved to making the mayors an instrument of their own reform. the duty of raising the one Merwara local battalion, being entrusted to Captain Hall, assisted by an adjutant and 2 European warrant officers. The headquarters were fixed at Bay 1, or as it was then called, Nayanagar.
I am going to present about the 14th Murray Jet Lancers. The 14th Murray Jet Lancers, also sometimes known as the Murray's Jet Horse, was a cavalry regiment of the British Indian Army. The regiment was first raised at Aligarh, an irregular cavalry unit, in 1857 as the Jet Horse Yeomanry for the East India Company by Captain John Irwin Murray, then serving with the Gwalior contingent. It was raised from 250 sepoys and 120 soldiers recruited from the Jats of the rural areas of Hathras, Mathura, Bulandshahr, Aligarh and Kurja in UP, and Palwal and Hodal in Haryana became the first regiment to be manned completely with jet troops in the British Indian Army.
Martial races. Martial races. Martial race was a designation created by army officials of British India after the Indian Rebellion of 1857, where they classified each caste into one of 2 categories, martial and non-martial. The ostensible reason was that a martial race was typically brave and well built for fighting, while the non-martial races were those whom the British believed to be unfit for battle because of their sedentary lifestyles. British trained Indian soldiers who were among those who rebelled in 1857, and thereafter recruitment policy favored castes which had remained loyal to the British and diminished or abandoned recruitment from the catchment area of the Bengal Army. The concept already had a precedent in Indian culture as one of the 4 orders, Varnas, in the Vedic social system of Hinduism is known as the Kshatriya, literally warriors.
Northwest Frontier Province. Northwest Frontier Province was part of British India. British called the Northwest Frontier Province due to its location in northwest of the Indian Empire. Now it is part of Pakistan and known as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It is the 3rd largest province of Pakistan. The capital is the city of Peshawar. The regional languages are Pashto, Hinduko, and Saraiki, Islam being the major religion followed in this area.
Hello, I'm Brazil. I have made a model of Madras Army. It was a part of British Indian Army which was active during the pre and post independence. Oldest battalion of this army was formed in 1704, known as Nayar Patalam, which is 9th Battalion of the Indian Army. Madras European Regiment was formed as 2nd Battalion by Major General Stringer Lawrence in the year 1860.
Bengali Regiment is a unit of the British Indian Army. This regiment was raised in the World War I. This regiment fought valiantly in the First World War.
Hi everyone, this is my army camp model. Today I am going to be explaining about army camp. An army camp is a semi-permanent facility of lodging for soldiers. An army camp is formed and removed according to their training and often have to make large camp forces. World War I. World War I is also known as the First World War or a Great War, was a global war. It lasted from 28th July 1914 to 11th November 1918. It was also described as the war to end all wars. The mobilization of more than 70 million military personnel, including 60 million Europeans, making it one of the largest wars in history. The war was started by the leaders of
Germany and Austria-Hungary. Germany entered the war because it was the official ally of Austria-Hungary, who declared a war on Serbia after the Serbian nationalists sought the heir to be the throne of Austria-Hungary. Germany's allies were Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria. Germany gave Austria unconditional support in its actions, again fully aware of the likely consequences. Germany had formally surrendered on November 11, 1918, and all nations had agreed to stop fighting while the terms of peace were negotiated. On June 28, 1919, Germany and the Allied nations, including Britain, France, Italy, and Russia, signed the Treaty of Versailles, formally ending the war.
The Battle of Neuchapel took place on the 13th March 1952. It took place in the First World War in the Artois region of France. The British attackers broke through the German defences in a salient at the village Neuchapel.
The Gallipoli campaign, also known as the Dardanelles campaign, the Battle of Gallipoli or the Battle of Cancale, was the campaign of the First World War that took place on the Gallipoli Peninsula from 17 February 1915 to 9 January 1916.
Sinai and Palestine Campaign. The Sinai and Palestine Campaign was organized by the British and their allied forces. It was the movement that was made to take over the Ottoman Empire and control the Middle East. It ran from the start of 1916 to mid-October 1918. It was during the Middle Eastern theater of World War I. The parties that were involved in one side, in the first side, were British Empire, France, Italy, Arab rebels. In the second side, Ottoman Empire, German Empire, Austria, Hungary.
Today we are going to talk about Mesopotamian campaign. The Mesopotamian campaign was a campaign in the Middle Eastern theater of World War I fought between allies represented British Empire, troops from Britain, Australia and the vast majority from British India against the Central Powers, mostly from the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire had conquered the region in the early 16th century but never gained complete control. Regional pockets Ottoman control through local proxy rulers maintained the Ottomans' reach throughout Mesopotamia. With the turn of 19th century came reforms.
The state of Ghad al-Amara, 7 December 1915 to 29 April 1916, also known as the First Battle of Ghad, was the besieging of an 8,000-strong British army garrisoned in the town of Ghad, 160 kilometers south of Baghdad,
by the Ottoman army.
Today I am going to share a few information of Battle of Tangal. The Battle of Tangal, sometimes also known as the Battle of Beast, was an unsuccessful attack by the British Indian Expeditionary Force. Tangal stood only 80 kilometers from the border of British Africa, which was a busy port and the ocean terminal of the important Usambara Railway, which ran from Tanga to New Moshi at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro. Tanga was initially to the bombarded by British warships, but the part of this plan is scrapped. Thank you.
I am going to talk about World War II. World War II, also known as the Second World War, was a global war which lasted from 1939 to 1945. It involved the vast majority of the world's countries, including all the great powers, forming two military alliances, the Allies and the Axis. World War II was the deadliest conflict in human history, marked by 70 to 85 million fatalities. Aircraft played the major role in the conflict. It involved the strategic bombing in population centers and also the only uses of nuclear weapons in war.
The Mediterranean Middle East theatre was a major theatre of operation during the Second World War. The vast size of the Mediterranean Middle East theatre saw interconnected naval, land, air campaigns fought for the control of the Mediterranean, North Africa, the Horn of Africa, Middle East, and the Southern Europe. The British refer to this theatre as the Mediterranean Middle East theatre, so called due to the location of the fighting and the name of Middle East Command.
I am going to today present about the Battle of Hong Kong. The Battle of Hong Kong, 8 to 25 December 1941, also known as the Defense of Hong Kong and the Fall of Hong Kong, was one of the first battles of the Pacific War in World War II. The attack was in violation of international law as Japan had not declared war against the British Empire. The Hong Kong garrison consisted of British, Indian and Canadian units besides Chinese soldiers and conscripts from both within and outside Hong Kong.
Same morning as the attack of Pearl Harbor, forces of the Empire of Japan attacked British crown colony of Hong Kong. Operations played an important role in setting the pace of military operations during December 1941 includes Tai Po Road, the Ching Moon Redoubt Trench and tunnel complex in the Jin Drinkers Line.
Why should we remember the war?
The soldiers did it for an important reason. We must remember because soldiers had families. We should be thankful for what they did.
Why is 100 years so important?
There is nobody around alive during the war. 100 years is a really long time.
We remember them by collection of coins, uniform and medals.